Sorry, were you gonna make a joke? King, your hair looks really good. Did you brush it just for the recording session?
No, I didn't, but today was my first day back to work from vacation, so I was like, I'm putting on a really nice shirt, and my highlights are brighter since the last time I was working, so I was like, I'm going to do my hair really nice, and I was clean shaven, the essentials.
We love that for you.
Thanks.
Did you hear the little beep? Did you hear the little beeps just in the background?
I did.
If you heard that.
I did.
Yeah. The robot vacuum is lost apparently in the other room. So.
Oh, did you bring Rosie?
I brought Rupert.
Oh.
Her younger brother?
God, I think I like her younger brother even more. I used to say Rupert? Rosie was the only woman I'd love that way. Rosie is his, if you didn't catch this, Rosie was his old iRobot. What do you call them?
Yeah, Roomba.
Roomba, yeah.
Roomba.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. God, she cleaned like no other.
You really liked.
I had a thing for her.
It. I mean, I've already said that I'm a bit of a loser, and I've been not a loser, but I've been, in order to feel not alone in my apartment. Sometimes I'll watch the live feeds of Big Brother, but also I will make the Roomba clean, and I won't feel like I'm alone because there's another moving being in the.
I was gonna say he also talks to Rupert.
Yeah, I also talk to the robot. Yeah. So
I love that.
Anyway,
I love
for those
that.
who didn't think I was insane.
No.
Now you
we know now.
Confirmed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's all right. Well, how are you? How has grad school been going? I don't even know how long you've been in it at this point.
I'm good. So I still at this point haven't started classes.
Really?
I thought I've been here for weeks, but I have not started classes. No, classes start Thursday.
See, I did a whole episode with you about, our last episode about grad school, and I thought we were talking about classes the whole time. I'm not going to lie to you.
No, that was just Campus Min stuff.
That was just Campus Min stuff. Okay, well, it sounded stressful enough.
Yeah. No, I'm really freaking nervous about starting classes, if I'm being honest. I had a moment, and it was just a moment, but I did have a moment today when I was staring at my computer screen, and I just had a sinking feeling, and I was like, oh my God, I'm starting a doctorate program on Thursday. And classes are 2.5 hours long, which is fun, but it's
I don't know how fun that is, but
it's not fun, but it's like long. It's long. It's not fun, but it's long.
That's hot.
I'm really surprised you didn't copy me on that.
Oh, true. I did say that hot, so like I was picking up on the innuendo, but
yeah, but I really have to figure out. I forget what I shared in the last episode, but I really have to figure out how to sit still for that long because it's been a while since like when you work, you can get up, you can go to the bathroom, you can do whatever the hell you want.
Right.
Like, no one's watching you all the time, but if you're at a lecture, it's rude to just stand up and walk around the classroom all of a sudden. So that's the biggest thing I think I need to figure out is just to calm myself with my fidgets or something. I don't know.
Do you have fidgets? I have fidgets.
I have an elastic band.
All right.
Just on my wrist.
Sounds healthy.
It's more so to break a habit, but
okay, sounds healthy.
Yeah. I mean, I bounced my leg.
Yes.
Yeah, that's really. I bounce my leg and I just like move and change my positions and all that stuff.
Switching the positions for you.
Yes,
quite different, but
yesterday I cooked.
Ooh.
I made dumplings 3 different ways. There was a potluck with my cohort, which was fantastic. Cohort still really great. I think we've really hit it off well. This apartment building I was in. Sorry, were you gonna make a joke?
I was gonna say you heard it here. He and his cohorts are making dinner together.
I hope they listen to this.
I love that.
I'm yet to. They have not found out about the show yet.
We'll let them know.
I'm sure. We'll let them know. I'll wear the shirt or they'll just follow me on Instagram and it's in my bio.
Perfect.
But I made dumplings. The apartment building we were in was so fancy. Like so fancy. We had an entire like lounge rented out, but it was like the entire floor. It was huge and it was like different. There was a kitchen in it and then there was was just, I don't know. It felt like a penthouse apartment in and of itself. It was really strange.
Fancy living.
It was. But I
Here we
made
come.
dumplings 3 different ways. I steamed some, I pan fried some, and I air fried some because I had an air fryer, and I'm trying to use that more. So
Well, that's fun.
It was good. I made 60, and they all went. So that was really
I
fun
love
and
that.
funky and fresh.
Dumplings.
So,
I love dumplings.
yeah, dumplings are good, right? Yeah. So otherwise, I'm doing well. I'm nervous about starting classes. I'm really glad, though, I have the campus min job to lean back on because I know Loyola, I know campus min, I know psychology and all that stuff. But
He doesn't even need to be there. He knows all of it. I'm kidding.
yeah,
God, I'm sweating already.
that's definitely what I'm saying. It was 100 degrees here today. Was it hot there?
It wasn't quite that hot, but that's nothing compared to what I did last week.
Oh gosh. Okay. Yeah. So
108.
anyway, that's how I'm feeling. How are you? You live a much more, at this point, I feel like you live a much more exciting life than I do because you're jetting off to fancy cities and all of that. Why don't you share with the class?
I definitely did last week,
Yeah.
which is funny because you're usually the one that I feel like is going places on planes. I went to Las Vegas, which I think the listeners
you
know
did.
already, to see Lady Gaga. It was my 9th time seeing a Lady Gaga show. It was actually my 2nd time seeing her in Vegas, so I saw the pop show Enigma in 2019 when we were friends, which is wild to think about. And then I just saw the jazz and piano show, which was like the other half of the residency that she's doing. I just saw that. I just came back from seeing that.
Did
They
you
have
like
a
it?
whole... Yeah, I mean, I've seen her jazz shows before, but I was like, I haven't seen that specific show.
Okay.
So that was my 3rd time seeing a jazz show of hers.
Was the other jazz show you saw just the one in New York, or was there another one time that you saw that?
I saw her and Tony Bennett on the Cheek to Cheek tour in 2015.
Okay.
And then I saw her and Tony Bennett in October, right when we started this show, actually, in New York City for his
Yes.
One Last Time show that they co-headlined. And then I just saw her jazz and piano residency, which has been going on since 2019, but this was my first time seeing it. It was really cool.
She also just restarted it, right?
She did just restart it. And she has at the Park MGM where the hotel that the theater is attached to, and also a casino, it's called the House of Gaga. It's the House of Gaga museum / shop, and it has, merch, but it also has multiple different, and we can post these on our social media, but multiple different outfits that she's worn throughout her career, like very iconic ones. The meat dresses there preserved by, it actually said what taxidermy company preserved it, but the egg that she arrived at the Grammys in, it's actually called the Vessel, but most people call it an egg, was there, and I touched it. I shouldn't have, but I did. The paparazzi outfit from the 2009 VMAs with the blood on it, the fake blood. The telephone hat from the music video, the cigarette glasses from the telephone music video, just like a bunch of stuff, tour outfits. And to my surprise, I didn't know this going in because this was actually the first day it was they were on display. Almost, I think 5 out of 7 of the Chromatica Ball outfits were there, which I was not expecting.
wow.
So that was really, really cool to see up in person. And it's free to go in. There's a donation box in the back for Born This Way Foundation, which supports, as we know, we've talked about it before, the mental health of young people. And you can also, it's funny, you can also donate your slips, your cash out slips from the casino.
Oh,
in
that's
there.
funny.
They take the money from that too if you want to donate that. There was a note from Lady Gaga to Tony Bennett and a sketch that he did of her, all behind glass. The Rain on Me music video outfit was there, which was super cool because you literally could see it's latex, and you could literally see the dried water stains from the music video.
Oh, that's cool. That's really cool.
Yeah, you could see all the little imperfections, like the little pulls and stuff, in different outfits. The boots for one of the outfits were quite worn. The telephone hat is literally falling apart. It's kind of funny, actually. You can see the tape underneath it, and they have pins in it.
Yeah.
Because it was really only made
together.
to wear for one scene of a music video.
Right.
She never wore it again.
Right.
And now it's just on display. But they had a bunch of stuff. I'll post all of my favorites. I'm trying to think if there's any other noteworthy ones that I missed. They used to have the Super Bowl outfit there, but that has since been taken down. I don't know where they put it.
It must be so interesting to be that famous and have a museum exhibit and just have stuff that people... I mean, I'm not as big of a fan of... I am a fan of hers, but I'm not as like big of a fan
Right.
of hers as you are. And so, but just hearing that, it's like, oh, that's really cool that you can see that up close and in person. So
It's
it
so
must be
cool.
interesting to just have all that stuff somewhere when
Yeah.
it's not in a museum.
And this is like, obviously it's like some of the most iconic stuff, but it's not like she has, warehouses and warehouses of stuff. Like they had the Joanne hat and the Joanne World Tour wig. So that was really cool. Just a bunch of really, really cool stuff that's like cool to a Lady Gaga fan, but also just cool. It's so many like pop culture moments
Yeah.
in one room. They had the Poker Face music video outfit. I'm scrolling through my picture. Did you ever see the lobster hat that she wore once? She just wore it out.
I think maybe.
That was on display, which is kind of funny because it was never like something that it wasn't like, oh, that's from the VMAs or the Grammys or whatever. It just like was a look that she wore on the street.
Yeah.
They also had her this is the last thing and then I'll move on, but they had her Golden Globe for American Horror Story.
Okay. Cool.
So just really cool stuff. But I went to, also, this was the really cool part. I went to her trumpet player's show after the actual concert. And that was in a hotel lounge / bar / casino. They've known each other since they were 19. Since she was 19, they used to play jazz shows like before she was famous, before she was Lady Gaga, just in New York. So now he plays the trumpet for her in her jazz shows, and he also played for Tony Bennett when they worked together. But he does a show in the same hotel. It's called Brian Newman After Dark, and it goes from like 11:30 to 3. And there were rumors, especially because this was the first night back, because he does it the same nights as her, like right after he gets off stage, that she was going to be there because she has gone in the past. So I was like, all right, I'll buy a ticket. I was I was a pleb. So I was like at the bar. It was a really small, like intimate lounge / it was like a fake library, but it wasn't, apparently the books weren't real. But so Lady Gaga posted a picture of her and her makeup artist and her hairstylist, Freddie and Sarah, on Instagram right after the show, and it was like, that's a wrap. And I saw it on Instagram, and I look up and I see Sarah in front of me, and I was like, oh my god, like Lady Gaga's gonna be here. She was not. However, Sarah and Freddie were there. Her sister Natalie was there. She was literally standing at the bar. I was quite literally standing like shoulder to shoulder with them at one point.
Wow.
Her guitar player was there. Her high school best friend was there. It was really cool. It was literally everybody but her.
Why wasn't she there?
I don't know. Well, it kills me because she was there on night 3. I just saw it last night that she was there. So I was like, it's okay. I'll get her next time.
Yeah.
I didn't say hi to any of these people because they were all hanging out together, and I didn't want to be that person. Like, they obviously knew I was a fan. I had a shirt on, and like most people that were there, because they had just come from the show.
Right.
Her manager was right behind me as well, like literally for an hour, talking to, of all people, I didn't even recognize this person because they were out of character, Shangela.
Wow.
Because Shangela's a big Lady Gaga fan and also has, connections to her team and has a cameo in A Star Is Born. But yeah, so she was behind me talking to Lady Gaga's manager for like a straight hour. But it was just so cool. I was like, oh my god, Natalie Germanotta, Lady Gaga's sister, younger sister, is right behind me, and she's wearing a Chromatica Ball hoodie, but very casually, like it just tied around her waist. Like this was not like she's a lot quieter. She just seemed very cool though. Like everybody was very nice. It was just really wild that I'm like, okay, her manager, her sister, her high school best friend, her hairstylist, her makeup artist are all standing. Like I can reach out and touch all of them. I did not.
That's really cool.
But
that's really cool. Also, given the context that this morning I did a training on unhealthy relationships, slightly stalkerish. But
no, because that's the thing. Well, that's the thing.
Well, it's just funny because it's like literally cyber stalking was one of the things that was in the training, and it's like figuring out where someone is based on their social media and stuff. And you're like,
well, yes.
Where do you think the rumors came from that she might be there?
Absolutely, like, social media. But that's
on social media. But she's a celebrity. It's a little bit different. But just listening to you hear that out of context, it's like she wasn't there, but her manager was there, and her aunt was there, and her sister, and her best friend from high school.
I know.
But she wasn't there.
They're
I can't believe she wasn't there. She wasn't, but she was there on day 3. But I wasn't there. Like
I know.
Context.
Well, there were let me just defend myself for a second. There are fans I know that bought like 3 nights like went to 3 different jazz and piano nights like in the same week. I saw them at the Brian Newman show, and I was interested too because there were a lot of people. The show lasted much longer than hers, so I saw like these 2 like twins.
Did you stay till 3?
No, I left like 10 minutes before everyone else because I was like, she's not coming, and I was tired. I was standing, and Brian Newman was great. Like he put on a really fun show. I was entertained the whole time. Yeah. But these 2 twinks left like an hour in, and I was like, and they were definitely there for Lady Gaga because they had like, the merch, a bunch of merch in one bag. And I'm standing there thinking, did they know that this is Natalie behind us? Like, I don't think they know. And no one was saying anything. Everyone was very respectful. But towards the end of the show, I was standing next to this other group of fans, apparently, and they were like eyeing, like we were all kind of like making eye contact with each other, and then we kind of like broke the ice. One of them said to me, they were like, all of her people are here, like, and I was like, okay, so you guys know too. Like, I didn't want to blow, I didn't tell anyone.
You're on the same bandwagon.
Yeah, because I didn't want to tell anybody because I didn't want to blow up their spot.
Right.
I think a lot of people knew.
Yeah.
But we were all being respectful.
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
And everybody on her team was super nice to us. I'm sure they get it all the time.
Yeah.
Like literally all the time.
Yeah. And let's face it, there's a reason why Brian does his show after hers.
100%.
I mean, he's totally capitalizing off of she might be there.
Yeah. And like, and good for him, honestly. Cause like, it was just cool. The whole thing was really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. That's really cool.
Yes.
So are you jet lagged at all?
Yeah, super. And walking in the 108 degree on the strip. Yeah. Also, shout out, Scott Geetons was there at the same time I was.
I know, seeing Adele.
Did not know.
Scott is someone who worked in campus ministry with us at Loyola.
Yes, and Adele said at his show, he texted me, he was like, I thought of you because Adele said, oh, I'm going to Lady Gaga's show. I have to go because I wasn't able to last time.
Did you tell him you were there?
He saw my Instagram story.
Oh, okay, yeah. What's been going on? Give us the rundown.
There's been a lot going on, but really all we have to update is that Heisem left, right? Last time we thought he was going home, but I don't think he had gone home yet.
I don't think he had gone home either. Yeah, so we each have a truth or dare to do.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, and I would have had 2
this week.
Except Jag was saved by Matt, who I think that was a bad choice on Matt's part to use the power.
Why do you think it was a bad choice? I thought it was a bad choice too, because I don't think I don't think his reasoning was very strong. It was more so, oh, he'll owe me, and
right.
It seems like they're close. Maybe there's more that we haven't seen, that their relationship is closer than we might actually see, because they were in the handful together. But right. Like, what's your reason? Because he could have used it this week or next week, right? In the next 2 weeks, he could have used it.
Yes.
Okay, so what's your reasoning?
My reasoning is just that the whole point of this game is to go as far as you can and hopefully win, and take home the prize money. But in using this on someone that wasn't himself, like if this was a use it or lose it type thing, I would see it a little bit more. But he had an extra week and he was safe from the block. So not only did he waste it, I'll say, on somebody that wasn't him when he could have potentially been nominated this week, he also made it so that no one goes home. So if he were to go home this week, I'm not saying, he's nominated or whatever, but if he were to go home this week, that power essentially put him on the block and made him go home.
Right.
Before Jag. You know what I mean? Like it's honestly like he had, let's just, I don't know what place it would be, but he had 13th place secured by not being on the block, and by saving Jag, he could end up putting himself in 14th.
Right.
Because Jag would have gone home and had 14th place. I don't know if it was 14th or 13th or 12th or whatever, but that's just my reasoning. He had an extra week of guaranteed safety, and he threw it away for someone else. That's my only reasoning. But what are you thinking?
No, I mean, I kind of said it, but I agree. I don't know. Anything could happen. I don't think that there's a big enough target on his back. I will say a consequence of him using it is that he could put a target on his back. Because
Yes.
if someone realizes, oh my God, like especially Cameron, because Cameron was head of household last week, put Jag and Blue on the block, read his final two, won the veto, kept the nominations the same, and then basically, in Cameron's words, in a diary thing that he did last week, just was nothing. It didn't count. And I think
Right.
that if he finds out, and maybe other people, if they find out that he used it, might be like, can we trust him? Can we not trust him? Why did he use it on Jag? And I understand that, like, him and Suri were discussing, Matt and Suri were discussing, you should use it this week to save Jag, because Jag also had the opportunity to potentially win the power. So then it might provide a veil of secrecy of who used it. But it seemed in Sunday's episode, this past week's episode, that people were already figuring out who used it anyway. So I don't know. I just think it's going to cause him. It potentially could cause him more trouble than it was worth.
Yeah, I think so too. And also, like, I think Suri had a better argument for, like, wanting it to be used because it wasn't her power. You know what I mean? Like, she gets to keep an ally, and Matt kind of does her dirty work. Again, people are going to Suri trusting her to be like, what should I do? And think that, like, oh, Suri and I are the final two, when, like, Matt
tight. Yeah.
has no clue that Jared, as of right now,
Jared, what
yeah,
a
no,
dumbass.
he's not intelligent when it comes to playing the game. He's just
he angers me so
I know.
much.
I get
and now he's
texts
head of
before the
household. I'm like,
episodes.
what the f? He's such an
Yeah.
idiot.
Yeah, yeah, he's tainting the good name of Suri. I don't know what her last name is. Fields. The Fields name, the good name, the good Fields name.
The good Fields name. I don't know. He's
We'll
just
see.
dumb. He's just dumb.
Jury starts somewhat soon. I think we only have 2 more evictions, this
I
one
don't
included.
even fully know what that means. I know that means that those people then get to vote on
for the
final
winner.
2, vote for the winner. But
Yeah.
I don't know if that means anything more than that. But
Think about how we did it. We started with the first person evicted went to the jury house. It's essentially that. There's a second house, and they're sequestered. They don't get to watch the show. They don't have, like, their phones or anything. They stay in that house for the rest of the season, and the only information they get is from the next evicted house guest. And they do get it. The next evicted house guest does bring a DVD that shows the competition and the eviction, but it doesn't show the votes. It doesn't show anything like that. No diary rooms. So they really are
so
a jury,
get
and they
some
get to
information, but
Yes.
it's not.
yeah, they get
Okay.
all the, like, objective public information that's public to the rest
word
of the house.
mouth.
Yes, and word of
stuff.
mouth.
Yeah.
And they deliberate. It's a jury house. They, like, sit around and talk about it, and they just,
So they
sometimes showmances.
Does it need to be unanimous?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, ours wasn't. It was 5-4.
Right. Well, I wasn't sure if you said they have to deliberate, and then usually
Well,
have
they
to
can
come to
talk
a
about
verdict,
it.
but they don't
Yeah.
have to come to a unanimous verdict.
No. There's 9 jury members, so it'll never be a tie.
Sure, but that's
But yeah,
the
we
Big
each have
Brother
one
update.
truth. Yeah,
Yeah.
one truth or dare each so
Yep.
far.
Yep, you
And
should have gone down another. But
I know.
dang, now
I know.
Cameron and Red are on the block, and they're both on my team. So
Yes, although, have you seen anything
on the feeds,
on the feeds on?
and I haven't been keeping up with the feeds as much as I.
I mean,
did
I
in
don't
a
either,
few
as you
weeks.
know.
I have only seen the Sunday episode.
We're
I
it's
don't have,
interesting.
I don't have X or Twitter, whatever.
Well,
fuck we're calling that.
it's certainly very interesting. I think this is going to be a good TV week.
Two
Anyways.
hops this time.
Two, dare I say 3 hops this time. I wanted to talk about the idea of doing your best and what it means to give yourself grace to truly fail, which is something that I don't know if I'll speak for myself. I don't know if I practice or have really ever practiced up until now. And I think it's probably something that's very difficult for just a lot of humans, or humans, as a general race
Yeah.
to do.
Mhm.
And I'll tell you what I mean by that. But basically, I've been reflecting, and I took a bunch of notes before this episode. So when I was like really, really suffering with like perfectionism, and I cannot make a mistake, and I cannot get a grade that's lower than an A, and I cannot, fail, that was, it was a debilitating thought that it was possible, to the point that I just kind of shut it out. Now I've kind of come to the, well, did you do your best? Was it good enough? When I miss the mark, though, nowadays I tend to justify it in my own mind. And that's the only way I'm able to move forward. And I feel like that sounds like I'm, making excuses for myself. But the word excuse kind of has, and tell me if you're following me, if I sound like I'm crazy. The word excuse kind of has like a negative connotation. But when I say justify, the excuse could be legitimate. But I'm trying to get to a point in my life where I don't need the excuse, be it legitimate or not, to move forward. I'm trying to practice that sitting with the, no, I missed the mark. Or, I was mean. Or I said something inappropriate. Or I didn't study hard enough. And that just being okay. And moving on. So I just want to ask your opinion first. Like, do you find yourself, like, I know you're also somebody, you've said it on the show before, hold yourself to very high standards. And I think that's very common for people. But do you resonate with anything I'm saying? Do you have any thoughts or comments?
Yeah, no, I totally do. I think for myself, in the short term, when I mess up or make a mistake or use your phrasing, truly fail, I'm very hard on myself in the moment, like I said. However, I find that as the long-term kind of, the further away, the more distance I get from that moment, I find that I'm able to give myself much more grace later on. And it's very interesting that you bring this up, because in my program orientations that happened last week, the word that continuously comes up in every single session is feedback. We're going to give you feedback. You're going to get feedback. You're going to get feedback. A lot of red pen. You're going to get feedback. We want feedback on how we're giving feedback. So something that's been in my mind is, how am I when I receive feedback in preparation for all the feedback that supposedly I'm about to get in my program? And one of the things that I've thought about, and maybe I'm going to tell my supervisor, either in the clinical setting and maybe even my academics advisor, is I think one of the best ways that I receive feedback, it doesn't really matter if it's in writing or if it's in person, but I can't receive feedback immediately. I need to process what has happened, whether it be a session with a client or whether it be, a paper that I'm giving to you. Like, I am not someone who can, if the feedback's in writing, I need to read it over, process it, and then I'm able to discuss it. If the feedback is in person, talked out, then I think I just need some distance, not a lot of distance, but some time away from whatever event or whatever thing you're giving me feedback on, and then I can take it as constructive criticism versus internalizing it as a personal attack on me, if that makes sense.
And that's very hard for a lot of people. Yeah. Especially if it's something you put time and effort in. And that's I think a whole another subsect of this conversation is, like, sometimes you do really put in your best effort and try your absolute hardest. And that's why what I mean by, like, justification may be legitimate and correct. I'm not saying it's not. I'm just saying I'm trying to work to get to a point where I don't need that in order to move on. And the justification that I mean would look something like this. I wrote a couple of examples down. So, I was going through a difficult time, or I was super busy at the time, or I didn't know better at the time. Those are all, valid. I don't like the word excuses. They are excuses, but excuses can be, legitimate. But they're
justifications, putting things in context.
Yes, they're all valid. Those ones that I gave, or maybe they're not. Sometimes, they're not true, but we don't even need to get into, when it's true, when it's not. I'm trying to move towards a place where I just say, or can say, because again, we're not trying to like beat ourselves up either. Like, oh, I failed, I suck. I'm not saying that at all. I'm just trying to get to a point where I say, you know, oh, I missed the mark there, or that was mean. I did something wrong.
Yeah.
And then what's the next step? Because usually I find that when I do that, the automatic response is just feeling a lot of guilt, feeling a lot of shame. I am bad. I'm, you know, we can talk about, like, there are many different conversations.
I am bad versus that was a bad moment.
Right. And there's Brene Brown talks a ton about that and the difference between guilt and shame. But I'm not even trying to get so much into that. I'm just trying to think, like, okay, what's next when you say, I made a mistake or I didn't study? It doesn't have to be like a moral mistake either. I didn't study hard enough. Or I don't even like that word because that's kind of like a should. I could have studied more, period. Where do you go from there? Because I think my fear in doing that, and maybe a lot of our subconscious fears, is that you're going to start slacking and be okay with, you know, whatever it is that you did, you know, like, oh, I'm be okay with, oh, I'm not a nice person, or I'm not a good student, or I'm, you know, it's okay to get bad grades and I'm just going to continue getting bad grades. Like, I think a lot of times we beat, and this is not my own original thought, I've listened to talks on this on YouTube, but I think a lot of times, like, beating ourselves up is a, you know, self-preservation mechanism, and also in the way that it's like, oh, don't do this again. Like, it's kind of taking control of the situation and making sure we don't do it again. But I think in saying, like, oh, or being able to say, I'm not saying this is something we need to do every time, because that's even sounds kind of harsh, but in being able to say, like, oh, I messed up there, what now? I think your job is not to beat yourself up, but to say, okay, now my job is to be extra self-compassionate to myself and preserve myself in that way, instead of trying to say, well, you know, you were going through this time and this and this and this in order to accept it, and then say, okay, I'm going to treat myself extra well. I'm going to make sure that this, and learn from it and make sure it doesn't happen again. I think that's a stronger step towards accountability than the opposite, which is what I, you know, just described.
Accepting, making the excuse, and then
right. I don't think you need to make the excuse. And again, sometimes they're valid, but do you really need it? Because the fact of the matter is, even if you were going through a hard time, it still happened.
Right. So
being able to say, I accept it, and now my job, honestly, this next part, the part I call the job, is honestly a form of, like, preoccupation, making sure it's rechanneling that negative energy of, oh, I'm bad, I'm going to beat myself up, and no, I'm going to treat myself well and make sure I don't do this again.
Yeah. I get what you're saying. I guess what I will push back on a little bit, and from my perspective, is I do think that the context of which you make a mistake can also be important too. Like, I feel like that's an important piece in being like, oh, I'm a bad person. Okay, no, you're not a bad person, but you had a shitty day at work. You didn't eat lunch, breakfast, and it was getting close to dinner time, and you had, I don't know, bills were coming due,
right?
And so you snapped at somebody, and that's why you react that way, even typically if not. I think context is definitely important.
Absolutely.
I do know what you're saying, though, in terms of, like, and correct me if I'm wrong, I'm trying to summarize kind of what you said. Taking that and you're saying being kind to yourself for, as in, like, accepting that you're like, kind of what we've talked about in the perfection episode, but I don't want to move into that conversation. But basically accepting that mistakes happen, or mistakes happen, they're going to happen. Sometimes one of the only things that you can do is move forward. And so you get a decision to make there. How are you going to move forward? Are you going to be self-compassionate, or are you going to shame or guilt yourself for the thing that has happened? Is that what you're saying?
Yes. And I want to just be clear too, like, context is important. I'm not saying it's not, in, like, whatever. I know I said, like, regardless of the context, it still happened. I know I did say that, but I'm trying to work on just myself. And this is not a complete thought. This is an ongoing journey. This is not something that I came up with myself, or it's just something that I've been thinking about.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about neglecting the context. I'm just saying to be able to not need that context to just be able to accept I made a mistake,
Mm-hmm.
and then treat yourself, with the compassion that you would treat somebody else with. It helps me. I feel like it strengthens the muscle of being able to take accountability for something.
Yeah.
And then, like I said, like the context doesn't have to go away, and it's not going to go away. Context is just like, if you think about it, it's just like the events that happened around the main event that you're looking at.
Right.
I just think I sometimes rely too much on accountability. Like, oh, well, did I do my best? Because what I then, like, did you do your best? Well, then it's okay. Like, then it's okay. Well, what if you didn't? Like, that's when the what ifs come into play. And that's how I got on this in the first place. Like, back when I was, like, in school, and I'd be like, oh, I didn't do well on that test, or I don't think I did well. Like, I think I got, like, an 80 or whatever. Like, and an 80's fine. That's not a bad grade. But just, like, when I was really, really hard on myself, my mom would say, did you try your best? And I couldn't answer that question ever, because you can always try a little harder. And that's where that's where I get lost in that struggle. So that's what I mean by not needing that context of, well, because, like, when somebody says, well, think about, like, you were doing this, like, I can always do the what if or the but.
Yeah.
I can always butt you.
You can always butt me.
No, I am serious. I'm not trying to be, like, funny, but, I can always add that if.
Just what you said was inherently funny.
It was. Thank you. Thank you. I have a podcast.
Do you? I think what you're touching on is resiliency. It's basically saying whatever context, no matter what the context is, it's how do you bounce back?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's what resiliency is. And it's funny that you bring this up, because I don't know if I've said this on the show before or even just said this to you privately, but, like, one of the things that I've been saying a lot recently, if someone is to ask me, oh, what's your favorite quality about yourself? I always say my resiliency, because I look back at some of the things that, like, I've gone through, and we're not going to play the comparative suffering game, and listener, do not play the comparative suffering game. I'm just saying in my own personal life, the lows that I've encountered, being, like, looking back and being like, wow, okay, have been able to bounce back and look where I am now.
Of course.
I think that's kind of like what you're touching on, right? It's like your ability to, and that even being resilient from something is not even, there's no perfect way in doing that either. I don't even think I did it perfectly each time, but it's just the
there's
fact
no
that
such
I
thing.
Did.
Yes.
Right.
Exactly.
It's just the fact that I did bounce back, that I chose to bounce back, that I don't know.
It's admirable.
Been resilient.
It's absolutely, like, you can just listen to the episodes that anybody that has listened to an episode of this show, or, like, listened to the show, can acknowledge that about you. But
oh, well, that was kind. Thank you.
But I'm serious. Like, you don't.
Well,
someone doesn't simply, to put it bluntly, think they're dying and then just, like, walk away the next day. You know what I mean? That takes a lot. Like that. You know what I mean? And that's just one example.
Yeah.
That I can think of when I think of, like, events in your life. But I'm sure you could. I mean, not. I'm sure. I know
I'm sure
you could
everyone,
think of more, because you're your own. With yourself 24/7, and your experience is your experience.
I mean, I'm sure you can pinpoint some events too in your life. Where you're like,
no, I'm thinking of some now. I mean, I think about. Again, this is not me trying to. I think you just said this in a different way. Like, you're not trying to, like, toot your own horn, but it's like, wow, I really, in the middle of a pandemic, chose to get help for something, went into a hospital for it, and am doing. Like, I never really gave myself credit for that, like, and I'm not even able to do it really right now, but there was a couple days ago where I was like, wow, that actually took, like, a lot of strength. And I don't even necessarily, not that I don't believe it now, I know that to be true, but I don't feel it as much. Like, I just had a moment of, like, wow.
Yeah.
That was really, really,
Yeah. I'm proud of myself for doing that.
Exactly. That's a cool feeling when you can like, really feel that and reflect on it.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, my whole point of this conversation was just, like, I think there's a strength in just saying, being able to leave it at, I messed up.
Mm-hmm.
Or I missed it, not even necessarily messed up, because like you could study for however many hours and then still do poorly. It's just, I didn't study as much as I should have, or could have. I won't say should have because I don't like that. And it's just something that, again, it's a tool. It's not something that I just want to like reiterate for like the fourth time. I'm not saying let's get rid of the context, because context, not to use the word, but contextualizes things, puts things into perspective. But I think
feel like
sometimes
there's different parts to what you're saying, and I feel like the context is important to. It's like when you have to accept that what happened, whatever that may be.
Right. And it's always going to be there. It's always important.
Take the context, right? And you have to take the context. It's a dangerous game to play if you just isolate one action or one decision.
Well,
or
there's
one
that too.
Inaction without the context. And I totally think that's what you're saying. And so we're talking about that, but then really this greater conversation is taking the context, taking the action, taking the inaction, taking the choice, whatever it may be. How do you move forward? Do you give yourself grace?
Mm-hmm.
Do you share some resiliency with yourself?
Mm-hmm.
Or do you guilt yourself, shame yourself, or, basically you get a decision. And I think that's what you're talking about is how do we move on from things that maybe went a way that we didn't want them to go.
And it looks different for everyone too. I'm just offering one tool that, like, if you can look at it if you can, accept it without the context, once you add the context, it's going to be even a little bit easier too, right? Like, so that's kind of what I've been playing around with and thinking about recently. And I actually say it from a place of feeling, pretty comfortable. Like, I'm not, like, this wasn't like I was going through a rough patch and then I thought, okay, this,
Yeah.
Like, right now I'm feeling pretty, secure, I guess. Which doesn't always happen, so.
I think it's a very relevant conversation to have, especially as I'm reflecting on it. And I didn't know the topic, by the way, going into this episode.
That was the other thing.
But I think it's very relevant, at least for me, when I was thinking about it, because we're talking about context, but also you saying, like, not having to need the context and still being able to show yourself grace is a skill too.
Yes. That's a good way of putting it.
Yeah. I feel like in my orientation type of things, there have been people who have said, trust the process. And as a perfectionist, they're teaching us to become clinicians. Right. Mm-hmm. And so I am going to be in the Loyola Clinical Centers interacting with real clients. And in the first year, I'm only doing intake. So I'm getting information for the second years to then do an assessment and do therapy. But I'm still interacting with people and having a conversation. And so a lot of the fears that I think my cohort is experiencing are we going... especially those who don't have any clinical experience prior, I'm afraid to f up this person more than they might already be. And so, and that's not to say that people who come in are obviously up, but I'm saying that we don't want to cause more harm. And so I think that's going to be a skill that I'm going to have to practice when I'm in this program, because there are going to be multiple moments where I think, it's screw up, but I did something wrong. But in the moment, I can't start guilting myself. I can't start shaming myself, because I'm still in session with somebody who's coming here for assistance, for help. And so I think it's a very relevant conversation to have, at least for me, as I've been participating in this conversation, because I'm going to need to learn that quick forgiveness of myself.
And also professional mental health specialists do not get it right 100% of the time.
No,
not one. So there's that too. And I just want to
even licensed people.
That's what I mean.
I'm not even licensed. I'm training to be licensed, but like,
that's what I mean.
Yeah.
My therapist
absolutely.
would say, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but he would say that, like, not everything he says is you know what I mean, is going to be right every single time like he says something. That's just unrealistic. Yeah. But the last thing I do want to say is just I also don't want to like I don't want to make it sound like I'm encouraging like, oh, just, you know, let it, you know, make a bad decision and then just whatever. Cuz I think that's the fear, is that when you give yourself that grace, that you're going to continue, you know, failing.
It's a gateway drug.
Yeah, okay. But there have been studies on this when it actually shows, the studies show the opposite, that when you do show yourself that compassion and that grace, you're able to, you know, better move through it, and then
it like becomes an opportunity for growth type of thing.
Opportunity for growth, exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Happy episode 80, by the way.
Are we at 80?
We are at 80.
That's fun. Holy crap. 20 more episodes till 100.
Yes.
Are we even going to get that this year? Probably not, right?
Not this year, no.
Next year. Darn,
yep.
2024.
Yep.
Stay tuned.
Did he just prematurely announce our 4th year of Point of View? He did. We love that, though.
I haven't started classes. No, yeah. I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No, don't do it to me.
Don't do it to me.
I'm going to have to start holding auditions for a new host if that's the case.
Just of my family.
Yeah, literally. It has to be a do. I'm like, so why do you want to be on Point of View?
Yeah. That was fun. By the way, I didn't do this in the beginning, but shout out to Yin and Yer. They were here this weekend.
Pew, 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 pew.
Pew, 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 pew.
Yer is running as he listens.
Yer is running. Yeah. He said he's got caught up.
I love that. I thank you, Yer. That actually means so much to us. Anyways.
I don't know if he listened to the bonus episode, though. He said he listened to the 5-second rule episode and Milo's episode, and I think there were a few in between there, too. But
honestly, legend. I'm not even joking. Like, legend.
Yeah, my grandparents. Shout out to them.
So slay. And with that, my name is Nick Gervasi.
And I'm Justin Dew.
You can reach us at our email, pointofdewpodcast@gmail.com, and on our socials, Instagram, Facebook, Threads, and TikTok @pointofdewpodcast, and Twitter @pointofdew. If you enjoy our show, make sure to follow the podcast and give us a rating or review wherever you get your podcasts, or share us with a friend or family member. We really appreciate it and are truly grateful for your support. As always, we hope you have a great 2 weeks. Thank you for listening, and until next time, H. We are so in sync with that.